Hey, you ever noticed how sometimes after a little afternoon snooze, you actually feel like you can recall things better?
Oh, definitely.
Or maybe, you've wondered if that midday slump, could it be a signal to maybe grab a quick nap and come out feeling mentally sharper?
Yeah, those are really insightful observations.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that science is increasingly, uncovering some pretty compelling reasons why you might experience those very effects.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're taking a deep look at, well, the world of napping,
Hmm.
specifically how it interacts with your memory and your ability to learn.
Right.
We've sifted through a bunch of research that explores what goes on in your brain while you're napping
Hmm.
and how that impacts, taking in new information and remembering things later on.
So we've done the legwork, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. No need to wade through dense scientific papers. We've pulled out the most useful and, frankly, interesting stuff. Our goal here is really to understand how napping can be this surprisingly effective tool for, like, giving your learning and memory a real boost.
And maybe offer some practical ideas people can actually use.
That's the plan. Ideas for your day-to-day life. Okay, so let's unpack this. Maybe start with the key question. How does napping affect your ability to learn and remember facts and events? Declarative learning, I think it's called.
That's the term, yeah, declarative memory.
Mhm.
And what's really interesting here is research suggesting a daytime nap can actually help restore the function of um, a crucial area in your brain. It's called the hippocampus.
The hippocampus. Okay, I've heard of that. It's important for memory, right?
Absolutely. Think of the hippocampus like your brain's main sort of filing system for new factual information and experiences.
Okay, like an inbox.
Kind of, yeah. And studies have shown that napping can have a pretty direct impact on how well this system works.
That's a great way to put it. And I know there was one study that really showed this well.
Which one are you thinking of?
The one where researchers had people learn lists of words, and then they tested them on what they remembered.
Right, the word lists study.
Uh-huh. After that initial learning, some people got, I think it was about 90 minutes to nap.
Yeah, a 90-minute nap opportunity, while the others just stayed awake.
And then later, everyone had to learn a completely new set of word lists and were tested again.
And the results were, well, they were quite striking, actually.
What did they find?
The people who had taken the nap showed a clear improvement in their memory performance. But crucially, on that second set of word lists.
Compared to the group that stayed awake.
Exactly, compared to those who hadn't napped. So what does this tell us? It strongly suggests that the nap helped their brains solidify or consolidate the first set of information they learned.
Like properly saving it in that filing system.
That's a good analogy, yeah. And this then seemed to free up their mental capacity, their learning potential, to take in and learn the new information more effectively.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if you're, say, studying something in the morning and you know you've got more to absorb in the afternoon, maybe a nap isn't just about resting your eyes.
Right. It's not just passive rest.
It could actually be a strategic move to help lock in what you've already learned and get your brain ready for the next round.
It's like hitting a mental save button, maybe.
Yeah, a mental save button. I like that.
Exactly. Now, we could dig a little deeper into how this might be happening
Okay.
by looking at the really fascinating brain activity that occurs while you're napping.
So what's going on in there?
Well, during the non-dreaming part of our sleep cycle, which we also get during naps, it's not just nighttime. Sleep researchers have identified a couple of really important types of brain activity.
Non-dreaming sleep. So not REM sleep.
Exactly, non-REM sleep. And the two key players seem to be slow oscillations and sleep spindles.
Okay.
Think of this non-REM sleep as the quieter, less visually active phase, but where a lot of this crucial memory processing seems to happen, even during short sleeps.
Slow oscillations, that sounds, well, very calm. Tell us a bit more about those.
They are indeed. Slow oscillations are these patterns of brain activity that happen at a very low frequency,
Right.
like 0.5 to 1 hertz, kind of like a slow rhythmic pulse in the brain.
Okay.
And these mostly occur during the deeper stages of that non-REM sleep.
Gotcha. And the other one, sleep spindles.
Right, sleep spindles. And researchers have found that particular bursts of activity, specifically those that happen in the 12 to 15 hertz range, they often call these fast spindles, seem to be especially important.
Fast spindles, 12 to 15 hertz. Okay. And when do those happen?
These tend to occur during the lighter stages of that same non-REM sleep. So you've got the deep, slow waves and these faster bursts in lighter sleep.
Okay, so slow, deep brain activity and these faster bursts during lighter non-REM sleep. Is there a connection then between these brain waves and how well we remember things after a nap?
Absolutely. That study we were just talking about, the word list one,
Yeah.
it found a really interesting link. The amount of improvement people showed in their memory after their nap was actually related to, well, correlated with, the number of these fast sleep spindles.
The 12 to 15 hertz ones?
Exactly those, the number they experienced during their nap.
Wow. So wait, the more of these fast spindle bursts someone had while napping,
Uh-huh.
the better their memory seemed to be afterwards. That's a key insight.
It really is. It strongly suggests these brain waves aren't just random background noise.
Right.
They seem to be actively involved in the process of memory consolidation, helping us remember what we've learned.
So the nap isn't just passive downtime, like you said.
Exactly. It's an active time for your brain, processing and solidifying learning. It's as if these spindles are helping to take that new information and make it more stable, more permanent in your memory.
That's fascinating. So, okay, we've talked about remembering lists of words,
Hmm.
which is important for, factual knowledge.
Declarative memory, yeah.
But what about when you're learning more complex things? Ideas that kind of build upon what you already know. Does napping help there too?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
How does napping play a role when we're trying to grasp more intricate concepts or update our understanding?
Yeah.
Well, this brings us to some other research, this time looking at napping and what psychologists call schemas.
Schemas. Okay, what are those exactly?
Think of schemas as the existing frameworks of knowledge you have in your brain. They're like mental blueprints.
Okay.
They help you understand and remember new information by giving you a structure, a context to fit it into.
So, like, if I understand how, say, different types of plants grow,
Yeah.
that's a schema, and it helps me learn about a specific new plant I encounter.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. That existing knowledge provides a framework. So another study looks specifically at how naps affect our ability to update and adapt these knowledge structures.
How did they test that?
Well, they had participants learn a kind of hierarchy of faces. Imagine like a family tree, but with faces, different levels.
Okay, like a social structure or something.
Sort of, yeah. Then the researchers actually changed the relationships in this hierarchy and added new faces.
Oh, so they messed with the structure people had just learned.
Precisely. It required the participants to revise and expand their existing understanding, their schema.
Tricky.
Definitely. And crucially, some people followed a sleep schedule that included regular naps during this process, while others didn't get those naps.
And did the napping help them keep up with all that mental restructuring?
It absolutely did. The group that got the regular naps showed significantly better memory when it came to recalling the updated face hierarchy,
Compared to the no-nap group.
compared to the group that didn't nap, yes.
Wow. So this suggests that naps aren't just good for memorizing, like, isolated facts or lists.
Exactly. They also seem to help our brains reorganize and integrate new information into our existing, more complex understanding of things.
It's like your mental filing system gets an upgrade while you're napping. Not just saving files, but rearranging the folders, too.
That's a really good way to put it. Dynamic adaptation of these schemas.
That's incredible. So napping helps us refine and build upon what we already know, too.
Yeah.
And let me guess, were those fast brain spindles involved here as well?
You guessed it. Interestingly, yes. This study on schema learning also found that the benefit of napping was linked to a higher density, a higher number of those fast sleep spindles during the naps.
So that reinforces the idea again.
It really does. It strengthens the argument that these specific bursts of brain activity are somehow crucial for memory consolidation, whether it's for simpler facts or these more complex knowledge structures.
Okay, so naps seem really beneficial. And these fast spindles, the 12, 15 hertz ones, they appear to be a key part of why.
That seems to be the case, based on this research.
And now when we think about actually taking a nap, there are different approaches, right? You hear about power naps, sometimes longer ones. Does the length, or maybe the way you take a nap, matter?
Absolutely. That's a practical point. There's definitely a range of nap durations, and different types can offer slightly different benefits or are aimed at different things.
Like the power nap.
Exactly. You've probably heard of the power nap. That's usually quite short, right? Say around 10 to 30 minutes. These are generally designed for a quick boost in alertness and performance. Often without that grogginess, that sleep inertia you might feel after a longer sleep.
Right, just a quick refresh.
Yeah, they're particularly helpful when you're feeling a bit tired, maybe have a bit of a sleep debt, and just need that mental pick-me-up to get through the next few hours.
Yeah, I've definitely used those to push through an afternoon slump before.
Yeah.
Are there any other specific types, like that have been studied?
Well, there's the one often called the NASA nap.
Oh, NASA nap.
Yeah, research done by NASA looking at pilots and astronauts actually found that a nap of just 26 minutes.
26 minutes, very specific.
Right. It improved alertness by a significant 54% and their task performance by 34%.
Wow, that's a pretty efficient return for just under half an hour.
It really is. So even a relatively short nap can have a really noticeable impact on how sharp you are.
Okay, 26 minutes. I'll remember that. Any others?
And then there's a slightly more, maybe unusual technique. It's called the coffee nap.
Coffee. Nap. How does that work? Sounds counterintuitive.
It does a bit. But the idea is you drink a coffee or maybe another caffeinated drink right before taking a short nap, usually around 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. Why?
Well, caffeine takes about 20 to 30 minutes to really kick in and have its alerting effect. So the timing works out. You get the refreshing benefits of the short nap.
Uh-huh.
And then just as you're waking up, the caffeine starts to hit your system.
Ah, so you get a double boost. Nap refreshment plus caffeine kick.
That's the theory, leading to potentially an even greater feeling of alertness than either would give you alone.
Interesting. Is there a catch?
The main caution, really, with coffee naps, and probably any nap with caffeine involved, is to keep them relatively short, like we said, 20, 30 minutes. And definitely not too close to your regular bedtime.
Right, because the caffeine would keep you up later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You generally want to leave at least, say, 4 to 5 hours between a coffee nap and when you plan to go to sleep for the night.
Yeah.
Maybe longer for some people. You don't want it messing with your main sleep.
That makes total sense. You wouldn't want to trade a short-term boost for poor nighttime sleep. Speaking of which, are there any potential downsides? Or things people should consider when it comes to napping in general? It sounds great, but is it always good?
That's a really important point to bring up, yeah. While napping clearly has many benefits, it's not necessarily ideal for absolutely everyone in every situation. And there are a few things to keep in mind.
Like what?
Well, for some individuals, and this seems to be noted sometimes, particularly in older adults, taking frequent naps, or maybe very long naps during the day, has been linked in some studies to difficulties with their nighttime sleep.
Ah, okay, so it could potentially lead to more restlessness at night or lower overall sleep quality for them.
That's the concern, yeah. For some people, daytime napping might actually interfere with their main sleep drive and consolidation at night.
So it's a balance.
It often is. Also, some research, and I want to be careful here because it's often correlational, not necessarily causal.
Okay.
But some studies have suggested a possible connection between very long naps, we're talking, say, longer than 90 minutes in one study, or perhaps more than 60 minutes taken daily in another analysis, and potentially certain negative health outcomes down the line. But it's really crucial to understand that much more research is needed to fully clarify these relationships and understand what's actually going on there. Is it the nap causing issues, or are people napping more because of underlying issues?
Right. Correlation isn't causation. That's important. So it sounds like maybe moderation is key for most people, and paying attention to how napping affects your own sleep patterns and how you feel.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is huge. And a really important takeaway, I think, is that if you find yourself consistently struggling with getting enough sleep at night,
Yeah.
or if you feel excessively tired during the day, despite trying to get good sleep, it's always best to talk to a healthcare professional.
Good advice.
Because excessive daytime sleepiness or poor night sleep could be signs of an underlying sleep disorder, like sleep apnea, or maybe another health issue that really needs proper diagnosis and attention. Napping shouldn't really be a substitute for addressing those kinds of problems.
Right. Don't just paper over the cracks with naps if there's a bigger issue. Okay, that's a very fair point. So to kind of bring it all together then, what are the main things we should really remember about napping and its impact on memory and learning?
Well, to summarize, I'd say the evidence we've looked at strongly indicates that napping, particularly short to moderate naps, the kind that likely include those vital fast sleep spindles we talked about.
The 12, 15 hertz ones.
Right. Those naps can significantly enhance your memory. And that applies both to your ability to remember new information, new facts.
Like the word lists.
Exactly. And also to your brain's capacity to adapt and update your existing knowledge structures, your schemas.
Like the face hierarchy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So it's really not just about feeling less tired, although that's a benefit too.
Yeah.
There's genuine, measurable brain activity happening during a nap that actively supports learning and memory consolidation.
So it's maybe not a sign of being unproductive, like some people might think. It can actually be a really productive activity for your brain.
That's a great way to frame it. It can be cognitively productive.
Okay. So a practical thought then. Maybe people listening could try experimenting a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Consider maybe consciously incorporating short naps into your day, perhaps especially before you need to concentrate on learning something new, or maybe after you've spent a good amount of time studying or processing information.
And just see what happens.
Exactly. Pay attention to how you feel afterwards, and maybe even see if you notice a difference subjectively in how well you seem to remember or understand things later on. It's a personal experiment.
Definitely sounds like a worthwhile experiment for anyone interested in learning or just feeling sharper.
Mhm.
Okay, great. And on that note, maybe here's a final thought for our listeners to consider. Given all these benefits we've explored today, could strategically planned naps, become a more routine, maybe even accepted part of how we approach learning, work, and just general productivity in our daily lives?
That's a big question.
It is. And maybe, what other ways might we be able to leverage the power of sleep, even in these short bursts like naps, to further enhance our cognitive abilities? It's certainly something interesting to think about.